What's up, Tweeners? Welcome back to another Tweener at Tennis video today here on the channel. And if you're new to the channel, hey, how's it going? My name is Phil, and this is where we talk about tennis in a more casual way for you guys to understand what's going on and off the court. And today, we have another movie review for you guys, another tennis movie, kind of documentary series following the life of Mardy Fish. And I'm not going to lie, this is probably one of the best tennis documentaries I have seen in my life. Not even exaggerating. I think in today's day and age, with Naomi Osaka talking about her mental health, with Noah Rubin, who started behind the racket, tennis has been seen in a light where we haven't talked about the mental side of it and what it can do to an athlete with this amount of pressure. And I really never really knew that about Mardy Fish. And to be honest with you, when I actually saw him play against Spain in a Davis Cup, like in 2000, like literally a decade ago in Texas, and I never really thought of him that way, and I never really saw him in this light. So I'm gonna start by talking about, like, I'm just excited to talk about this because I think this movie says a lot about tennis players, and I'm very thankful that Mardy Fish came out with this to talk about his mental health and what he was doing and what he struggled with after achieving so much in his career. So let's just jump right into it. I think the first thing that we have to talk about is his relationship with Andy Roddick, because personally, when I was growing up playing tennis, I never really knew their history. All I knew was about Andy Roddick and Mardy Fish being in the shadows. The fact that Mardy Fish lived with Andy Roddick, was the sparring partner essentially for Andy Roddick and kind of already determined that Andy was going to be the better player, it blew my mind, because I thought to myself, how can you be one of the best players on the junior circuit and then all of a sudden be compared to the guy you're living across with? They literally shared the same house. Fish lived with Andy Roddick and his parents to kind of help him progress his game and to kind of help Andy get to that next level. And I loved how Andy Roddick quoted it and said that they were not just best friends, they weren't best friends, they were brothers, because they would fight over everything. Everything would be a competition. And seeing that for me was, I think, a real testament to who you need around you to push you to the next level, because Andy had Mardy, Mardy had Andy. There was always like two players that would make each other better. And I think that's in every sport. Like Roger has Rafa and Novak. Novak has them. And for every David, there's a Goliath. So I always thought that was an interesting comparison because of their relationship in general. And during this age of Mardy and Andy, America was on the decline from, quote-unquote, the golden age because of McEnroe, Sampras, Agassi, Jimmy Connors. All Roddick and Mardy grew up watching these guys, watching them play the U.S. Open in the 90s, watching them play for these Grand Slam titles, watching Jim Courier win his 4 slams. It was amazing that they had so much pressure on their back. And we still have that in today's game, because we always look to the golden age, but the golden age is far behind us now, at least. And the way Mardy described it was really funny how he described it, because he said when the interviewer asked what stopped the next golden age, what burst the bubble on the golden age, and he said, I think a guy called Roger Federer burst the bubble. And honestly, yeah, because it went from Roger, then Rafa, then Novak, and then the 3 greatest players in tennis history probably are playing in the same generation. Like, how does that happen? That's unbelievable. So the amount of pressure that they had from American media, then trying to beat Europeans that were on just another level, it was something to behold, because Roddick was the last American man to win a Grand Slam in 2003 at the U.S. Open, and that kind of put everything into perspective for Mardy and for Andy as well. because kind of that stopped everyone from putting pressure on American tennis. So the first big matchup that Andy and Marty had was in Cincinnati, and Marty had multiple chances of winning. He had many match points, but ultimately failed. But it was the way that Andy Roddick played him showed their relationship, because Marty talked about how it became a chess game. He knows my game like this, and I know his game. Marty doesn't have a good forehand, so Andy Roddick wanted to expose that. But Marty then all of a sudden goes, wait, he knows that I know that, but does he know that I'm looking to do this? But in the end, Roddick hits 2 kick serves out wide for a winner, and ultimately wins the match, because it becomes a mental side. Like, you know everything about their game. What's going to surprise them the most? So once that happened, and once Marty kind of moved on, and after Andy won the U.S. Open, the relationship was unbelievable. Their relationship was great. Seeing that camaraderie on tour between two guys, and we see that on tour today, but the brotherhood that they had was really cool and really fun to see between them. And we later saw, then we got into more of Marty Fish's game. We got more into his career. And the first final that he played against Roger was in 2004 Hall. And Hall is kind of Federer's stomping ground. He's the king of grass. And Hall, he's won many times. But in 2004, Federer went up against Marty 6-love 3-0 in about 25 minutes. 25 minutes takes me 4 games. How do you go up a double break and a full set on someone like Marty Fish during his prime? And Marty thinks that Federer prolonged the match because he felt bad for the crowd. What? Excuse me? Excuse me? That's gonna fuck with your psyche. Fuck sake. That's gonna fuck with your psyche so hard. That thinking that someone's gonna allow you to win games just so they can beat your ass later on, I would be so pissed. I would be pissed. But the fact that that was the way he thought kind of is not the best way to approach a match or even think about a match. Like, yeah, he's super good, but the fact that he showed quote-unquote mercy is just another thing to kind of, like, that's just terrible. That's just terrible. So we kind of fast forward later on into 2009, and we open in Newport at the Hall of Fame. And one of the things that people were saying about Marty was, just like some of the other greats, he never really showed that fire that Roddick had when he got super upset, showing that emotion. Serena, all these top players, and they had that hunger to win. And by this time, Marty was 28 years old, but he actually told himself, I'm in a good mental state, I'm in a good physical state, mentally and emotionally I'm okay, I feel good. Let's try to put full effort into it. Let's try to see if I applied myself 100%, what would happen. And his first match at the Hall of Fame, he was down to a Belgian that he thought he should have won, and all of a sudden, he snapped. He just went off on the kid, literally going to the other side of the court and yelling at him. Excuse me? This kid is getting verbally abused by Marty Fish, saying that he doesn't belong here and he shouldn't be playing this well and he shouldn't be Marty. That was the snap. And that drove Marty to be the player that he was that year. He made the top 10. He was number 7 in the world. Made the ATP finals, which were his goal. And then with that became a whole lot of pressure. And I think that's where we started to see the arc in his mental state. His stress level went up For a guy that went from around top 60 in the world to 7, the guy couldn't stop. He had so much momentum and was playing so well, but, and we see this very often in tennis, what comes after that? The next year. Can he follow it up? Can he follow that pressure? Because after he makes the ATP finals, he then goes on, and I'm not going to say a bender, but his schedule goes from this to literally this. And he said that he wouldn't get sleep. His body was like, where am I sleeping? Like, why am I not sleeping? His results, he was crashing out. He crashed out of the first round of the Australian Open, crashed out of everything. And while his appearance fees got higher, his performance kind of dropped because it became a cloud of noise of, is he going to win a Grand Slam? Is he the next top American? And the mental state that you have to be in to lose 32 pounds in a year, go from top 60 to top 10, and then do all these appearances and kind of try to build that brand off the momentum that you just built. How do you, as a player, mentally stay in it? Because when he was at Saddlebrook, when he first started at Saddlebrook with Roddick and all these coaches, at 12 years old, one of the things that Roddick said was, at 12 you were being called soft. Do you know how crazy that is to call a 12-year-old soft? If I called a 12-year-old soft now, I would be fired. If I called him a whip, I'd be fired. But that's the mental side that they try to teach the kids at such a young age. And the way we're trying to build junior players today, we're trying to teach them mental toughness. But the mental toughness that we're trying to teach today is far from what we taught them years ago. Far from what I was taught. Because everything now is looked at differently. And what I mean by that is, you can't say the things you could say to a 12-year-old back then than you can now. And the way Marty battled his anxiety and his depression a little bit. The opening line of this film or this series was him Googling anxiety on the way to a match. Do you know how hard that is to have a panic attack before a match? Does anyone, can anyone really like equate to that? Because the way he describes how he felt is just emotionally moving, in the sense that he was criticized for not following up a great year. And that's just something that I could never, and I think that's why I had trouble deciding whether I wanted to go pro, because the mental side of it for me is just a whole nother game. And you guys have seen it when I play. Like, I get inside my head a lot, and I'm playing a tournament this weekend, and I really don't know, and I really want to stay focused for it. So I have to do a lot to kind of zen myself to not get too excited or too anxious about this. But his is just 5,000 times more stressful than mine. And I'm proud to say that Marty came out and talked about this. I'm proud that he was able to talk about this. And during this time, too, with Naomi Osaka, and when he did a panel with Racquet magazine this past year for before the U.S. Open, him, Billie Jean King, Naomi Osaka, Nick Kyrgios, talking about the mental health side of tennis is something that we really need to promote, and we really need to create a safe space for these players that feel the stress of it. And Osaka, I think, and I constantly bring up her name because she's being a prime example of what being famous can do to a person. And hopefully this can help people see that you're not alone. And I hope that this can kind of promote treating your mental side as well as your physical side to your game. And I highly recommend you guys watch this. I highly recommend you guys watch this. I'm very passionate about this film because I feel like I can relate to it in a lot of ways. I feel like we can relate to it to today's game a lot, and I'm very happy that Marty came out with this documentary series. Let me know what you guys want to see down in the comments below. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see in terms of movies for tennis that you want me to react to, any shots, movies, anything you want to see tennis related. Let me know down in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to Tweener Tennis with notifications turned on. Thank you guys so much for hitting 2,000 subscribers. I'm really happy that we're having more and more people join the Tweener Head Tennis community, and maybe we can get to 2,500 by the end of the year. That would be really great. And I hope everyone's having a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hope to see you guys soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks, guys.